All right, welcome back to the Cardon Ellis Show. I am your host, Cardon Ellis, and today we are joined in the studio by a very interesting character, Joel Erickson, who is the, let me see if I get this mouthful correct, the dialogue and ADR specialist for, here, you do it, just you do it.
Well, dialogue/ADR supervisor.
Okay, cool. In a nutshell, if you've ever gone to see a Michael Bay film, and there's a bunch of yelling and screaming before the explosions and before the Hummer barrels through the brick wall and then blows up the dam, which releases the river, which annihilates the continent, which starts the global thermonuclear war. Okay, before that happens, there's usually some talking involved, and This guy does all of the sound for that talking and supervises it all. And he's got some really cool tips for anybody that wants to get into sound in the industry. He's also going to tell us some pretty awesome stories about some crazy things, especially with iPhones, and how even though these films got $60 million budgets, how often he actually resorts to using iPhone footage and audio. It's actually pretty interesting stuff, and you got a pretty cool career here. So before I bury the lead here and take over the conversation, Joel, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you're so cool.
Okay. So I got into doing sound for film about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. So I was kind of later in life, actually. I was about 28, and most people in the industry probably start out a lot younger than I
if you're a model, you'd be washed up, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
You're a menace to society at that point. You know?
Yeah. So I moved out to California. I grew up in a small, farm town in Idaho, and went to film school, and then decided, that this is what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to make the leap. Moved out here with my family and
Wait, is that why you had horses in your one YouTube video?
Yeah.
Those were your family's horses?
No, they're the neighbor's horses, but
okay, total aside right here. He has got a YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. It's called Gnarly Mode, is that correct?
Gnarly Mode, yep.
Yeah, and he's got these hilarious lightsaber videos in which there's horses and lightsabers jousting. I need not say more. You just got to go check it out. We'll talk about that later on in the hour. But okay, so those are like legit. Yeah, I mean, you look like you knew what you were doing on those horses. So you're like a legit farm boy.
Actually, that is a testament to our filmmaking because those were stuntmen. It wasn't even me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. So what, they were just neighbors?
Yeah, just our neighbors. And our neighbor actually played both sides of that jousting duel. He was both people. It was the same person.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm sorry. Continue with what you were saying. You got into it late. You're from a farming community in Idaho.
Yeah, so I basically we moved out here, no prospects, and I did like another after my 4-year film degree. I did another technical program that was based around Pro Tools, which is the industry standard
cool.
sound editing software. And
yeah.
While I was doing that, my plan was just to get more specialized in sound and try to make some contacts, like meet anybody that I could. Okay. And about halfway through that program, which was a year program, a friend of mine actually from the film school I went to at BYU introduced me to my sound supervisors, who I still work with to this day, like 10 years later. And I started out for them as a runner. I was basically running hard drives back and forth because this was back in 2010, and there wasn't a lot of online transferring of files just yet.
It still sucks.
It was kind of on the verge of kind of taking off there. Uh-huh. And so I would just spend a lot of my days just running hard drives back and forth from the picture department back to Sony, where I was working in the sound department. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. You have to be in the Editors Guild union to edit sound on a major, union motion picture. Okay. And so I wasn't doing that, so I couldn't edit or do anything of that kind. So being the runner was how you had to start out and start working with the crew.
Wow.
But before the end of that...
Is it actually credited as runner? Does in the credits, does it say runner?
Well, but
I ran a lot.
Before the end of that production was over, I was in the union.
Oh, okay.
And so my title was able to be assistant sound editor.
Okay, cool.
By that point. So they kind of fast-tracked me. I got really lucky that way, but they fast-tracked me into the union before the end of that movie. That was Transformers 3.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, so you started right off the bat, just big hitting.
Yeah, it was like just a really good connection, and the guys I was working with have just always really took care of me and have kind of brought me along ever since to all of their movies that they've done.
So rumor is that Megan Fox ran off with the sound guy in Transformers 3. Was that you?
No, that was not
No.
me. I deny any knowledge of that.
Okay, so I got to know, what's it like working with Michael Bay, man?
Michael Bay is a really cool guy. He's very intense.
Really?
And well, one of the things that you kind of get to experience when you're working on a movie is the sound. They call them the sound rolls, which is basically all of the audio recordings from the set. And the sound is rolling a lot more than just the camera.
Yeah, okay.
So sometimes you hear, conversations, or everybody's heard, a few things that have kind of leaked off of a set that shouldn't have made it to the public.
Yeah,
ear.
totally. Yeah. And you're getting all of that, aren't
so
you, right?
you hear a lot of stuff, and Michael's very intense on set.
Oh, that's cool.
But on the sound stage, like when he comes to mix with us on the stage, he's really chill, and he's actually a really funny guy, and he always has these crazy stories of like what happened on the set and all the shenanigans that took place and what he had to do to get this shot and that shot. And he's a cool guy to work for.
Oh, really? Oh,
like
that's
him a
so
lot.
interesting.
Yeah.
I only saw him once. He was filming at a family member's of mine's place as like a film location, so I got to meet him.
Yeah.
And he was in a hoodie. He was just like hanging out. I thought he was honestly like one of the PAs or something, So I guess that's a good thing, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you're in there and you fix all of this sound. Now, like Transformers, like so much is going on. Okay.
Yeah.
I had another friend who did sound in films. And I know sound is so important because they say 60% of the movie-going experience is sound. Okay.
Oh, they say 60% now.
Why was it less or more before?
Well, it used to be 50, but the 60% sounds good.
Oh yeah. No, I've always thought it was
More
60.
than- yeah.
You can have a crappy image. Who
Well,
cares? But if the sound stinks, then that's what makes it look amateurish. Right?
That's true. And even taking like the most polished Hollywood like visual effects shot.
Yeah.
Say, imagine this action scene from a Transformers or Armageddon or whatever, and just watch it silently.
Yeah.
Like without any sound at all.
Totally boring.
It's very visually impressive, but it does not like emotionally impact you.
Oh, and I can only make it through some horror films by turning the sound down.
Right.
Like, that's all I can do. I'm the biggest pansy. Like I can, with the sound down, I can be doing this. You know what I'm saying? I can be covering my eyes and peeking through the cracks, but I can't. Okay, so. Wow, this is so intriguing. So you
and
work...
I didn't always. So I've transitioned recently to dialogue. So when I first started out, I was an assistant sound editor.
Yeah.
And when you're an assistant, you basically are in charge of data management. So you're getting they call it the turnover from the picture department. So they'll give you an update to the shots and the film, and it's your charge to your goal is to delineate that to all the other sound editors, make sure people are working on the right parts of the movie and that kind of thing. So that's what an assistant does. And then when you finally start to edit sounds, I did a few films where I did the sound effects, the explosions, guns, and cars and all that kind of stuff. And then I transitioned into the dialogue. So each facet of the sound is kind of its own distinct group within the sound team, and then everybody brings their elements together in the final mix.
Wow.
So the only department that we don't really work with very closely, I shouldn't phrase it like that. The only department that we're not...
you better watch what you say, dog. Half of them are listening, man.
Exactly. The music department is pretty independent of us.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't see them a lot until the final mix stage where they come in. They're sending us, their music tracks so we can kind of work off of those and see how the effects are playing with the music, during the editorial process.
Yeah.
But it's not until the final mix stage where everything comes together and it's all balanced out that way.
Wow, that's
cool. So dialogue and sound effects work very closely hand in hand, and then the music people come in, at least with us right at the end.
Okay, so I have to know something. I know we said we were going to talk about this later, but I just want to dive into it right now. You were telling me a story during pre-show that was super interesting. How right now you're working with The Rock. Mm-hmm. Okay, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, if you will.
Yep.
And you needed some dialogue.
I think he prefers Dwayne, but.
Okay, you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
You're already on a first name basis, right? So you're the authority.
Yeah.
You were saying how you needed some extra audio, and that a lot of these stars, after filming is wrapped, there's a lot of pickups, and you said, I think you called them efforts. You'll get into that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But you said you need some lines, and it's actually best to record remotely on an iPhone.
Well,
get into that.
So I'll explain that. I wouldn't say it's best.
Okay.
But it works in a pinch. So
what movies have I heard and thought were done in a freaking amazing studio, and I've been gimmicked because there's just some sound genius like you mixing iPhone footage?
Well, I think
or audio.
There's probably a good portion of movies recently that have at least a small percentage of things that were done in that kind of way, like on an iPhone or
so tell us
whatever.
So tell us what's going on. What did you do with The Rock?
So we haven't done it yet, and don't let this get out. Is this a public show? Like, this is going out to people
it will
listen?
be.
Okay.
So you can say we can edit out anything that needs to be edited out. Don't worry.
No. So
you don't have to say what the lines are, but just say what you're doing and how you collect it.
Yeah. So Dwayne is extremely busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a good example of anyone who is more busy than that guy in Hollywood. He's got a million shows going on. He's producing things. He's acting in
things.
His
Instagram profile it's
crazy.
Is going to give me a heart attack and
I
stress.
don't know how he finds any spare time.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges that we have is getting him to, or is him just having the time to come in and record lines that need to be replaced. So on the set, there's all kinds of production gear and generators and all kinds of problems that can happen when you try to record audio on a set.
Yeah.
And for the production mixer, their only job is dialogue. Like, that's all they care about. They don't want, they're not worried about explosions or footsteps or, pouring a drink of water. Nothing. All of that is replaced, like 99% of it.
Yeah.
So their only job on the set is to capture the dialogue. And when that doesn't happen, like it should, the actors have to come in and re-record their lines.
Wow.
But sometimes there are picture changes that take place late in the game, where they make a cut or they want to change a line. Maybe the camera is around the back of the actor's head, and so they're free to kind of swap out dialogue.
Yeah,
You're not going to see the lips mismatching.
Yeah, okay.
Just to clarify something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's one or two words even.
Okay.
And if that happens right at the end, when the final mix is almost finished, actors are off doing another project. They have no time to go to a studio to do anything like that. And we need just one or two words. Then in a pinch, they'll use an iPhone. They'll go to a quiet room, use their iPhone to say the line, or we'll send them an audio clip of how it was said.
Okay.
So they can mimic exactly how they did it, and they can hear the tone, and because you have to kind of get back into the actor mode.
Yeah.
And they'll send us that clip, and most of the time it's totally fine, and the audience would never know that it wasn't done professionally on a stage.
Whoa, that is so crazy.
Yeah.
So now, you before you had mentioned that, like, it's best to do 3 takes, one with it like close to your face, one with it kind of far away. Like, what's the? My mind is blown here that I'm watching huge movies that might potentially just have clips from an iPhone. I don't know why I'm perseverating on this, but this sounds like crazy to me.
So when we first had to kind of resort to this kind of a thing, actors weren't that experienced. I'm sure a lot of the big actors are experienced in doing this now, and some of them even have nicer setups in their home, like with a professional microphone and things like that.
Yeah.
But when they're on the road or they can't swing that kind of thing, but we'd get recordings back where they went in a bathroom and started doing it, and of course it's way too echoey, and our software magic only goes so far. You can't fix like anything that's really egregious.
Okay.
So
egregious. That's a great word, by the way. That's word of the day right there. Okay, keep going.
That was the dictionary.com word of the day. So so we started sending out kind of an instruction email, like, okay, this is the lines that we need you to do. This is how we want you to do it. Make sure you go in a room that, go in a coat closet, or go in a room that has carpet, lots of stuff on the walls. Don't go in a hardwood floor kitchen or anything like that.
Okay.
Make sure your refrigerator's unplugged, no air conditioning on.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff to think about. And one of the other tips is that they record the audio in 3 different distances from their face. So they'll hold the phone as far away as they can get it, then kind of halfway in, and then really close, and do 3 different takes of the same line. And usually any of those would work, but one is always better than the others. So we'll just pick the one that works the best. And
wow. Okay. Now, is it something where you completely have to salvage it, or is an iPhone just as good as some of these like $3,000 mics that people are using?
They sound really good. Yeah, they sound really good. And every line in the movie has some form of EQ that the mixer is going to put on it to make it sound as good as it can be. So even the professional mics, I mean, they're going to have some kind of treatment on it just to get it right in that pocket that it sounds the best. So the iPhone, I mean, it's no different than any of that other stuff. So they'll EQ it and just get it right in the pocket, and it's fine.
Okay, so there's a lot of people here. I mean, we're in the greater Los Angeles area, so there's a ton of people that are aspiring to be, sound engineers, sound guys, to be actors, models, singers, so on and so forth. What makes a good sound guy?
What makes a good sound guy? Well,
not sound guy like Kevin James.
Specifically post sound.
Yeah. Sorry, you're not the dude that's got the big gully sack,
right.
and the boom pole that's trying to make small chat with the actors as the director goes away to get, another illegal substance in his bloodstream. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you're a good. So what makes a good version of you? Really?
Yeah, I've done a couple independent, very small budget films where I was the boom operator and the mixer. So I had a little sound devices recording rig on a shoulder strap.
Okay.
And I would be doing the boom and mixing at the same time to get the levels right and stuff like that. And then I was also the editor for those movies. So it made me really cognizant of what I was recording, because I knew I would be the one editing all that stuff. So I tried to get the best stuff all the time.
Okay, so what is that guy doing? What is the sound guy doing? I've been on a million sets, and I've never been a sound guy. I've been friends with a ton of sound guys. They always seem to be the coolest, most laid back guys on set.
Yeah.
What are they doing with those little knobs as they fiddle all day?
So they're just mixing the different microphones, getting levels right. So they have multiple microphones on set. They might have 1 or 2 boom operators. The actors have a wireless mic. Depending on the setup, they might plant certain microphones in strategic areas of the set.
Oh, okay.
To just try to pick up any sound that they can. And the mixer is making a mix track. So all of those channels of audio are being summed together on a mix track that they can then use to do the first phase of the editorial process.
Okay, cool.
But we're able to, as editors, pick any one of those individual microphones or channels and use just that channel. So we don't want to use the mix track in the final movie, because you got a lot of audio coming together that you don't need. So all of the noise floors from those different channels of audio, all of the hiss, all of the static, all that stuff is being summed together. And when you take all of that away and have just the one microphone that you need with the best angle on the sound, it sounds extremely better all of a sudden.
Okay, so we're coming up on the bottom of the hour here, and I got to ask you one question before we go on a brief break here. What is like the craziest, coolest thing you've done or mixed as a sound guy?
The craziest,
in Hollywood,
coolest
like
thing.
I don't know, what's something that's like bragging rights, or something that's just like kind of hip, where like when your progeny, your grandchildren are like, my grandpa did blank. You know what I'm saying? Like, we used to have shootouts in the OK Corral. We used to have, like, my grandpa shot the sheriff, like, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What are your grandkids going to say about you?
Boy, that's a good one.
Sorry if I start an existential midlife crisis right now on the Cardon Ellis show.
I have done absolutely nothing with my life. There's lots of little tiny things that will be fun to point out. Like, I don't think anything where... Because I have sound designers that I work with.
Okay.
You know, I've done effects editing, but I've never done a lot of sound designing. Like you were talking about, like the Transformers, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That's all my boss, Eric Adol. And
well, dude, they don't even need Eric at all. I mean, that that you just did was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, those guys are. He will be able to say, you know, I made that Transformers sound, and I know a lot about how that kind of stuff was created. For me personally, one that's always kind of fun is, I don't know if you've seen Goosebumps.
Oh yeah, I have actually.
Yeah. So in that movie,
with a little puppet, right? Not the old one, the new one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
In that movie, there's these little gnome guys, right?
Yeah.
That are walking around, and they have these really high-pitched voices, and we used helium to kind of make high voices and things like that.
Oh, legit.
But they have a kind of a laugh and then this weird little noise that I did one day just messing around with. I do it with my cheek. It's like this.
Whoa!
And
what the heck was that? What was that? Wait, you got to do that again. That was amazing. That is okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, if you cannot see this on YouTube,
I think it's in the trailer too for Goosebumps. But
you literally just did like the cheek sucking, like that. But while you're going like, I can't even try that. Oh my gosh.
So,
okay, if you're listening to this on the radio, you need to go home and find this on YouTube, because that was the craziest, coolest thing I ever saw all week. Keep going.
So that's kind of a fun, and we use that sound to kind of just give some emotive quality to the gnomes while they're running around. They do this little thing, and
dude, that was so scary.
I recorded it for John Marquis, the sound designer, and he took it and he did a whole bunch of cool stuff with it, and so yeah, team effort, I guess.
Okay, well, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking right now with Joel Erickson, who's the total cool sound post-production guy on all kinds of Michael Bay flicks, all kinds of action flicks. Right now he's doing there's a river cruise you're working on now, right?
Yeah, Disney's Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, Disney's Jungle Cruise. When we get back, he's going to tell us the process of becoming an actual post-production sound guy in Hollywood, and hopefully there's some other really cool stories, and hopefully some other really cool sounds right here on the Cardon Ellis Show. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the Cardon Ellis Show. I'm your host, Cardon Ellis, and today we are joined in the studio once again with Joel Erickson. We just had a really interesting talk. He is the sound guy in post-production that handles a lot of the dialogue in the ADR for Michael Bay movies.
Yep.
But it's not just Michael Bay you work for. Right now you're doing Disney Cruise. What's it called?
Yeah, it's Jungle Cruise, Disney's Jungle Cruise, based on the Disneyland ride.
Yes, that's right. Based on the Disneyland ride. And you've done all kinds of other...
Which is a really fun movie. It's good.
It's good?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So that's actually good to hear, because sometimes, sometimes the trailer's better than the movie, so on and so forth. But your opinion is it's good. That's good to hear. What else have you done? Like, just brag it up for a second, so when you give us your advice later, we know it's coming from a position of authority, right?
Yeah, I've done, let's see. I've done every Michael Bay movie since Transformers 3.
Oh, okay. What are we on, like Transformers 17 now, or what are we on? I've kind of lost count.
We've had Transformers 5 and Bumblebee, although that was Travis Knight who directed that one.
Okay.
Need for Speed, Argo.
Rock
so
on.
we've done a couple movies with Ben Affleck and Ninja Turtles 2 and that kind of stuff.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. Well, you don't work. You just have fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All right. So you are the sound guy, and you specialize in dialogue. In the last block, we had a really interesting conversation where you told us, A, how it's done. B, you did that really crazy, weird sound that the gnomes have that I'm still recovering from, But we also talked a little bit about your YouTube channel and how some of our listeners can actually become a version of you. This is a city, Los Angeles is a city loaded with aspiring filmmakers or aspiring sound guys, actors, models, editors, special effects dudes, so on and so forth. So first, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you got to where you are and what kind of advice you would give to the 10-year younger version of you who wants to be you? There's somebody out there listening to this right now saying, dude, I'd love to be in my living room, make a weird sound with my cheek, and then have it be on the freaking, the R.L. Stine Goosebumps movie and so on and so forth. So what was your story in getting there, and how would you advise the younger version of you that wants to be a sound guy?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing, it's kind of cliche, but it's true. It's connections. It's contacts, people that you know, that can get you, an interview.
Okay.
The school thing is not as big a deal. Like, at least where I work,
so the parents out there are freaking out because you're telling people to sleep their way to the top and not go to school. All right. Okay. Exactly. Thank you. All heard here on the Cardon Ellis show. Right. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
Like, the guys I work with could care less about where I went to school. They just want to know that I know what I'm doing. They want to know that I know the software, I know the hardware.
And what's the proving ground for that? Like how do you showcase that I actually do know what I'm doing?
Well, it's partly fake it till you make it. So when I was hired to be the kind of runner / intern, on Transformers 3, I went in and gave him my resume and interviewed with the then assistant editor of the production to see if I'd be a good fit or could be of help.
Okay.
And they had some new computers there. They had some new sound editing stations there. And I just kind of like volunteered. This wasn't a requirement to get the job by any means, but I just kind of volunteered to like set them up. And so I set them up and installed like some HDX cards, which is some sound editing gear, and just kind of showed them that I was on top of things. I could be a go-getter and just kind of be handy that way. And I think that's what got me the job initially.
Wow.
So, and some of the stuff that I was setting up, I'd never done before.
Oh, really?
I just read in the instructions as I was doing it that's how you needed to do it. And so,
well, that's interesting. I'm curious. So even we've all heard the fake it till you make it, but how do you get even to a position where you're capable of faking it? Like, how does the farm boy from Idaho, for those of you that haven't listened to our first block, I mean, you got to check it out online. Joel is actually from a farm in Idaho. And he's got this like lightsaber YouTube video with 20 million views in which like these horses are charging and jousting with lightsabers. It's freaking hilarious and it's funny. The sound was horrible on that one, by the way. You might want to go back and redo that. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, now that you're a professional guy, you're probably looking back at your old YouTube content going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Yeah. But how do you go from... It
actually wasn't that old.
Oh, sorry about that.
No,
I'm just kidding. But how do you get to a point where you're sitting there in Idaho and you're like, I want to be a Hollywood sound and special effects guy, to all of a sudden being the dude that's done the past 7 Michael Bay films? How did you bridge that gap from just having the dream and sitting on the alfalfa? Okay, I know I'm totally like glamorizing this wrong, but how do you get from being in that field in Idaho, a state known completely for potatoes, to being the dude in California, in Hollywood, that's making Michael Bay's movies?
Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't describe myself as the dude. No. Like I'm on the team, but there's a couple other guys on the team I would say are the dudes.
Okay.
I just ride coattails is really all I do, but.
Hey, it's riding. Is that your advice? Just ride coattails.
Just ride coattails. Find someone really successful and just latch on. There's no like golden ticket that you're gonna get. I think a lot of it is chance, but the more that you put yourself in the position and put yourself out there, the more chances you're gonna get. So the way I met the supervisors I work for now was I had a buddy from film school that I graduated with who had been a food runner and had just gotten meals for the crew, like for the sound crew. And a sound crew on that kind of movie is 15, 16 people about with everybody, and they called him to see if he wanted to do that again, and he had gotten into picture editing, like assistant picture editing. So he said, no, I'm not really doing that anymore, but I've got a friend that just moved into town who wants to get into sound.
Wow.
I'm sure he'd give it a try. And so he called me up, and I went in for an interview, and a couple other guys interviewed, and I ended up getting the job. So it was kind of a lucky chance, meeting, but there are people that so I kind of help also run the website for the sound company that I work for. It's E Squared. And
by the way, what's the E stand for? Is it like entertainment excellence? So it's easy. Is it anything like that, or just no?
The sound supervisors I work for are Eric Adol and Ethan Vanderine. So they're both start with E. So it's E squared.
Okay, that makes more sense. All right.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are really good. Ethan was on all the Lord of the Rings movies with Peter Jackson, and Eric, of course, kind of got his kind of became famous as the Transformers designer, and has done Godzilla and that kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
But what were we saying? Where was that?
Oh, how do you get from being that Idaho farm boy to being
what I was saying
where you are now
was I kind of help run the website as well on the side.
Okay.
And we get, submissions on the website all the time from aspiring sound editors, all the time.
Okay.
And they just kind of put themselves out there and say, hey, I'm doing this in school. I'm really interested in what you guys do. Here's my contact information. And once in a while, we'll contact one of those people. But
what makes you choose one from the other, though? Like, is there anything, or is it just literally at the right time, that person was the right guy to send in the right portfolio?
Well, so here's some information that should be helpful to a lot of people wanting to get into this. It's all union based. You have to be in the Editors Guild to work on a movie as an editor.
Okay.
And to do that, you have to have a certain amount of hours on non-union pictures as an editor, like as a sound editor, and you have to show like pay stubs. And I can't remember exactly what the amount of hours is, but you have to qualify yourself. So most of the submissions that come our way through the website, I basically lay that out for them. I say, that's good. We'll keep you on the list for possible people that work on a show. Because when you work in sound, you're freelance. I mean, I work with the same company all the time, but I'm always hired per project. So when a project ends, I can go work with another sound supervisor if I want to, or if I have an opening or something like that. It just so happens that I just have stayed with these guys because they always have some more work to do. But most of the time I'm pointing out to people that you have to make yourself union eligible before you can work on like the big Hollywood, not the independent films, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at that and you're serious about getting into sound, go to editorsguild.com and look at the qualifications for making yourself union eligible.
Wow.
Because you have to get in the union. That's like the number one hurdle when you're starting out.
Okay, so can you just like slip in the back door because you know somebody? You know what I'm saying? You can't really get away with that.
It's really...
So what got you in the union?
Say no.
Just all of that running that you talked about before?
I started working on Transformers 3 as a non-union position, like a... what was the title? It wasn't a sound assistant. It wasn't anything in the sound world. It's just like a production assistant.
Okay.
And after so many weeks, if you are on a union job or on a union movie, they can do kind of a fast track, get you in the union type of thing. But it's so rare; it doesn't happen very often that I wouldn't tell people to count on that kind of thing. I got super lucky.
Okay. What about the value of making your own movie? So many, and actually, before we even talk about making your own movie, talk to me a little about school for this. Mm-hmm. Do you think a big expensive film school is the way to go? You yourself had mentioned that you got like a simple certification. What role does education actually play in making it to the position you want to be in Hollywood?
Well, I think it definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, if you have the knowledge, if you go to film school, you're going to be on student films. You're going to know, you'll have kind of an idea what sets are like and what post-production process are like, especially if you want to get into post-sound. None of that stuff hurts, but I wouldn't say it's a requirement. The most important thing when we're looking at people is a sound reel.
Okay.
So you mentioned like making your own film. For a sound person, it would be taking a big action scene from a well-known movie, taking all the sound away from it and redoing the whole thing yourself. Like if you want to be a big sound effects designer,
Whoa.
and you have a couple of those scenes that you can show a sound supervisor, I cut all of this, I edited all this from scratch, and they look at that and they immediately, within the first 20, 30 seconds of that, they're going to know if you know what you're doing or not.
Wow. So could you maybe, for example, like take a really well-known movie, like a great monologue, like maybe Braveheart, where he's about going to say, will you fight for your freedom? Like that whole cool thing, right?
Yeah.
And just maybe having your sister record it. So it looks like Mel Gibson has a girl's voice, but it's like legitimate. And then you hear like the clank of the shields and the shink of the different armor and so on and so forth. But instead of them fighting with, actually, no, that might be too comedic and maybe they wouldn't take you seriously. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you
Put
literally
your own little stamp on it. But.
Yeah. But you literally suggest perhaps downloading a section of a film that we all know.
Yeah.
And then just redoing the sound completely to show, hey, I can make this look professional.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're doing that, you have to have all of the aspects of sound in place. You got to know how to get, and here's the other thing. If you can tell them that you did it with all sounds that you recorded yourself and you didn't cut from a sound library that you purchased, that's even better. Because then they know you know how to go out into the field and acquire sound assets yourself that you can put those into a library and master them. So you put them through all the EQs, make them sound really good, then use those sounds to cut the action scenes. And then you have to mix all of those sounds together in a way that makes it coherent for, a first-time viewer of the scene. So
wow.
One of the things that is always kind of humorous to me is when people think about sound in movies is you always think immediately of the Foley artist in the Foley stage.
Yeah.
And that is a very small portion of the entire sound process of a movie.
Yeah, for anybody that's just tuning in and doesn't know exactly what a Foley artist is, to the best of my understanding, and I was a Universal Studios tour guide. All right, Joel. So I'm not out there making cool little cheap sounds.
Maybe it's Universal Studios that is perpetuating this falsehood. But.
Yeah. So a Foley artist, for those of you that are just tuning in or maybe don't know what a Foley artist is, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Joel.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that basically take the wet celery and wash rags and smack them together so that when you see that fist punching the face, it makes that cracking sound. And they're the ones that wiggle the sheet metal for thunder. And they're the ones that, take high-heeled shoes for women and go to a basketball court and then go clickety-clack to make all of the high-heeled shoe sounds and so on and so forth in movies. That's a Foley artist. Am I correct?
Yes. So
okay.
There's someone who watches the screen and in sync to what they're seeing on the screen, they're performing the sound because it's so specific that it's just quicker to record it while you watch it live than to edit it from a library. So any editor worth his salt could easily edit footsteps going down a sidewalk or going up the stairs. We have a million of them in the sound libraries. We could cut each and every single one, but that takes time. So it's easier for a Foley artist just to watch it on the screen and perform the sound.
So he's like those guys.
Perfect. They'll get it like 90% there.
Yeah.
But then the editors will take the sounds that they've recorded and tighten them up and get them just perfect right on the picture.
So he's like that guy that you see at the mall or at Hollywood and Vine with the cymbal here, the drum connected to the left foot, the piccolo connected to the right foot. You know what I'm saying? And he's walking around banging his drums and making the beat while he's also playing on the little electric guitar. And wow, that's I didn't realize that they did it live.
Yeah, the sound editors, the guys in charge of all the sound effects in the film, they do the backgrounds, birds chirping or wind gusting, and they do the guns and they do the cars. Like you can't do guns on a Foley stage. You can't do cars on a Foley stage. You can't take a car out on a track and and do.
You could do it in your
360s.
driveway. No,
You
I'm just
could.
kidding. I am not responsible for any damage to anybody's driveway, sir.
But the reason people see Foley artists so often in behind the scenes or in media stories about doing sound is because it's really the only thing you can film. Like you take a news take a news crew out to a sound studio. You say, well, we want some footage, some B-roll of you guys doing sound. That's the Foley stage. That's where you're going to go and do that kind of stuff. But most of the time, you're out in the field with a recorder, out in the real world, recording and collecting sounds just in everyday life, and bringing them back, putting them in your sound library, and eventually, you have 10 terabytes of sound that you could. A new movie comes in, you could cut 90% of it with what's in your library. And you only have to do a little more Foley and things like that.
Okay. What's the craziest sound you've ever recorded?
Craziest sound. I'd say the most fun was recording the cars for Need for Speed.
Really?
Because we had all of these like supercars, and we took them out to California City to the airport.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, right? Isn't California City abandoned?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a tiny little airport, and we just basically rented their service road that ran along the runway. We couldn't actually do stuff on the runway, but we rented the service road that ran alongside it. And we had all of these amazing supercars and these stunt drivers, and they would, we would mic up all the cars, and we'd have 5 or 6 different microphones inside the engine, have a couple inside the car, some by the mufflers and the exhaust, and they would, first, okay, let's do a, slow away, call it away where you just drive away.
Okay.
And then we'd have each of us with our little microphones at certain points down the track. So each person that the car zoomed by would get a different perspective of the speed, because at this person he's going 20 miles an hour, at the next person he's going 40 miles an hour. And so we take all that and we can take it back and just use whatever we need for the movie.
Wow, that is intriguing. You literally just miking up a bunch of motors. And I guess my only question, do you have a bunch of XLR cables just following the car? Was it all done wirelessly?
It's all done with a sound rig that's in the car. So the XLR cables are coming out of the hood or going under the floor board of the car to the recorder. Then you just hit play on the recorder, and it just sits in the car as they are doing donuts and peeling out and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that came to mind just now that was pretty cool was for the Godzilla roar. We did.
You did Godzilla too?
Well, I didn't personally work on that movie, but I was, everybody on at E Squared is like, a dozen people, and so you always know what everyone else is doing.
Oh, okay.
And I was there when they did the Godzilla roar, and there's a certain thing you can do with sound called worldizing it.
Okay.
And you can do that with plugins in Pro Tools, which means you take a sound from a library and you're going to make it sound like it's in another space, right? You put reverb on it. You make it echo like it's out in some place, right? But the best way to do it is actually in the real world. So they set up all of these giant concert speakers, and they played the Godzilla roar through the speakers that my supervisor Eric had designed, and recorded it on the Warner Brothers lot as it echoed through the whole lot.
Whoa.
And we actually got calls from Universal who heard it from Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is in Burbank, and Universal is Universal City, right?
Yeah.
And they heard the roar from Warner Brothers and called to and we had to let the, emergency services know, fire department know that we were going to be doing this whole thing because it was loud. Like the whole city of Burbank probably heard that day. But getting that, recording, all of those reflections in a real kind of city environment just is that much cooler for the.
So the whole poor city of Burbank is running around thinking that Godzilla is just attacked, Wow, this is intriguing. Okay, I hate to end this, but we're coming up on the end of the hour here. How can people see more of you? We're going to talk about your YouTube channel, but we ran out of time. Tell us what is it and how they can see more of you.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube. Gnarly Mode is the channel, and we just do fun, kind of entertainment, little short videos, special effects videos, and cool sound videos, and that's just the part-time hobby.
Oh, dude, that is awesome. Okay, so we have been listening to Joel Erickson on the Cardon Ellis Show. I'm your host, Cardon Ellis, but he's the cool guy. Check him out on Gnarly Mode. And if any of your friends were traumatized by the Godzilla roar that was all throughout, Burbank, you know whose fault it is. Actually, no, it technically wasn't yours, but your friends.
Yeah.
So, wow, this is great. This was totally awesome. Guys, make sure you don't go anywhere. Be here same time, same place next week. This is the Cardon Ellis Show. See you next week.